Jimmy Butler's return to Miami this week as a member of the Golden State Warriors is a stark reminder of just how wrong we were, or at least how wrong I was, when it came to his showdown with Pat Riley and the Heat. After years of backing Butler in his many disputes with his former teams, I had come to the conclusion that Jimmy Buckets had lost his leverage. That, for a variety of age and cap-related reasons, this was finally the one fight he couldn't win. Butler may not have landed in his preferred destination with the Suns, but he still maneuvered his way to a cushy situation in the Bay, where the Warriors gave him the financial commitment, and in his eyes, the respect he coveted from his employer. A $111 million extension that lines up with the contracts of Steph Curry and Draymond Green means Butler can spend the last leg of his career competing for championships with fellow Hall of Famers and playing a role perfectly suited for him at this stage of his career. And, oh, by the way, the Warriors, who owned a losing record when Butler joined the team, are 16-3 with him in the lineup entering Miami. I'll never doubt you again, Jimmy. And with that, welcome to the Unfiltered Show from the Score Studios. My name's Joseph Casciaro. Guests in studio today, Joe Wolfond, Keerthika Uthayakumar, but we just call her Keeks. Wolfond, Keeks, what's going on?
Not a whole lot, man. I mean, I would never imagine you, of all people, Cash, having to dole out an apology to Jimmy Butler, but I enjoyed watching it.
Man, as you know,
the only one he gets.
What's that?
That might be the only one Butler gets.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's not getting one from the Heat, although they are apparently going to give him a tribute video. But I mean, like I said, because we'll find the history with when it comes to me and Butler, and basically saying at every stop along the way, yeah, he maybe didn't go about it in the right ways, but he was right. Like, he was proven right about all these stops. In Miami, it's not even that I thought he was in the wrong, though in part he was. It's more so, like I was saying in the morning, like I just didn't think he had the leverage anymore given the whole situation. But in the end, still gets what he wants, kind of. I know it's not Phoenix, but he got what he wanted. He still got paid.
It's a better situation.
Yeah,
than Phoenix,
it's better.
honestly.
Yeah.
I never really understood why he was so hell-bent on getting to Phoenix specifically to begin with. So in this case, yeah, it almost worked out better for him that he didn't get exactly what he wanted. So,
I mean, the timelines in Golden State right now line up perfectly because all three of those guys pretty much are, I guess, will be through their contracts.
Yeah.
They're all in the same age range.
Yeah.
They might retire together, walk off into the sun.
It's a perfect blend. Okay, so Jimmy got his way again. The Butler did it again. Have we learned anything new about Jimmy this year, or even, say, the last month since he's been with the Warriors? Like, is he playing any different than you thought he would? Is it basically what you expected from him in a situation like this? Was the way it ended in Miami, did you feel any differently about Jimmy Butler than you did 3 months ago?
No, I think this is all very much in character in terms of what we know and have learned about Jimmy over the last decade plus. And it's also very in keeping with what we've seen him do on a basketball court. Yeah. And I think what's been amazing about Jimmy as a player is how adaptable he can be. For a player who doesn't and never really has shot the three ball especially well, and at this point in his career doesn't really shoot them at all, for him to be able to fit alongside other star players as well as he does, adapt to an off-ball type of role, to be able to play, next to Draymond Green for one thing, but often next to like Draymond and another center.
Yep.
To make that work is a tribute to how good of a player he is, how smart of a player he is, and how adaptable he can be. I wrote about this trade when it happened, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, and Cash, I can poke fun at myself when I'm wrong, which I often am. So I will take this opportunity to say this is exactly what I expected to happen, because in Miami, he'd been in a kind of similar situation, right? Like playing next to Bam, who shares some similar characteristics to Draymond, playing in similar kind of tight confines at times, dealing with maybe not ideal spacing from a three-point shooting perspective, but mitigating that with the way that he can move off the ball, with the way that he can pass, slip screens, things like that, and playing in an offense that also relies on a lot of the same concepts in terms of like playing out of delay action, split action, all that stuff. So I think in that sense, it's been a pretty seamless stylistic transition, and I think we're just seeing, playing next to a player like Steph, he can be an amplifier. He doesn't need to dominate the ball. Yeah. And he can work really well in two-man game on either end of the two-man game. Ball handling, screening, I think all of that has just been very seamless.
Okay, Keeks, I mentioned there's 16-3 with him in the lineup.
Yep.
They're climbing
what the
up
Heat's
the
record
West.
is.
Yeah, I think they might have 3 wins in that time.
5-17.
Is it actually 5
Yeah,
and 17?
5 and
Wow.
17.
I know they had lost 10 in a row.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Warriors, they trade from, they're a losing team. They've now gone, I think, 16-4 total, but 16-3 with him in the lineup, and they're up to, I think, 6th in the West. They're in the playoff proper range now when it looked like they were going to be fighting
one-game
to
lead
sneak.
and everything.
Yeah, to sneak into the play-in. So the question then becomes, how good do we actually think they are? And where do you put them in that stacked West? If you're talking like championship contenders, where would you stack them?
To me, there are 3 title contenders: Thunder, Cavs, Celtics. For the most, at least maybe the Nuggets if Jokic is fully healthy.
And you don't think the Warriors have? Wow.
No, I think I'd
Really?
put them definitely in like a second round, maybe conference finals. Jimmy, an all-time maybe a top 5 floor raiser. Throughout his whole career, every team he's gone to has been better than the sum of their parts, right? The Heat, as you can see where they are right now, playoff Jimmy itself kind of hid all the flaws on that roster, and now that he's not there, it's all coming to light. They can't score the ball. That would be the only reason why they go far in the playoffs, I think. But
wow, all right, I wasn't expecting that. That's a
I'm
bold
not a believer.
take. Wolfond?
My feeling about it is in the West, there's a Thunder, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
I think.
Do you think they've like rocketed to the top of that everyone else, or no?
No, but I think they could easily be the team that finds itself in the conference finals as long as they don't play OKC before then.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the seeding and the matchups and things like that, that's what's going to determine how that bracket shakes out. But if the Thunder are healthy, I don't think anybody in the West is beating them. And to me, the next tier of teams is like 7 deep.
Yeah.
All
They're all
like
bunched
pretty
together.
closely packed together in the standings. And in terms of quality, I think there isn't that much to separate those. I don't even like 7 teams, like 2 through 8 basically.
It's
they're
like
all bunched up pretty
Nuggets,
much. I think
and if we're talking Warriors, Lakers, obviously now that although they're not playing as well lately, but they've kind of put themselves.
I mean
in
they
that
have
mix.
Luka Doncic and LeBron James.
In
like
a
they're in that
7-game
mix.
series, Rockets and Grizzlies,
3, 2, through
and like the
8
Wolves and
in
Clippers,
the West.
like all of those teams to me are like not separated by that much in terms of overall quality, and it will just come down to matchups in terms of which ones advance and which ones don't. And I think the Warriors are firmly in that mix, and the bracket could break in such a way that they could easily find themselves in the conference finals. They're not near the level of the Thunder, but I don't think any other team in the West is.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the best they can hope for, but that would be a fantastic outcome for them. So.
I mean, they were a game under 500 before the trade,
Yeah.
right? They were 12th in the West,
Yeah.
maybe 10th. But they were out of the play-in picture when they played the Raptors the first time.
Yeah.
And now they're 6th.
Now we're even having this conversation. I will say I'm surprised. I thought at least one of you would say that. Not that I thought you would put them higher than the Thunder, because I agree. I think it's the Thunder and everyone else in the West. But I do think the Warriors have moved. I get what you're saying, that there's a logjam there, and I see it in the regular season. And obviously matchups will determine it. Because, if they ran into the Thunder, I would pick the
The
Thunder.
entire
But
playoffs is about matchups.
But I think the Warriors have put themselves on another level, maybe in another tier, like between the Thunder and everyone else, and like maybe the Nuggets have a chance to butt into that. Maybe the Lakers, if everything breaks right, they have LeBron and Luka in a 7-game series. But man, I just think the Warriors, like now when you think of what they could be, first of all, what they've been with all these guys in the lineup, but what they could be, and in a 7-game series, like in the playoffs, as we've discussed ad nauseum over the years, Draymond Green, conceived the notion of a 16-game player, and he is one of the ultimate 16-game players. Well, now they got the ultimate 16-game player, Jimmy Butler. And like I was saying off the top, he's like kind of in this role that's perfectly suited for him at this stage, where he's the second guy. You mentioned how good he is off the ball, playing in that offense with Steph Curry, the two-way ceiling of that team, the star power of it. Yes, OKC's the better team, but I give them like a legitimate chance to beat Oklahoma City now in a 7-game. I wouldn't pick them, but I think it's like a fight now.
What's legitimate, though?
I wouldn't be shocked if it happened.
I would be shocked.
I would be shocked.
Man,
I would be shocked if they get more than 2 games.
Again, I'm admitting Oklahoma City's the best team. I would pick them to win the championship right now. But you would be shocked if a team with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green on it
They're
won a series against.
35, 36.
I agree. Listen, I agree.
Steph's
I think
37.
Like
I think-
Jimmy Butler was the ultimate 16-game player when he was like 31, 32. You know, Draymond Green conceived of the idea of a 16-game player when he was like 27. Like these guys are, and they're still playing it at a high level. Like Draymond's still a wonderful defender. Steph's still a transcendent offensive talent, and Jimmy, as we mentioned, is like great at fitting between those two guys. But like, man, their front court depth is shaky
they're not
to say the
flawed.
least.
Yeah.
And going up against a team with the kind of size and physicality and athleticism that we're talking about with the Thunder, I mean, that team is like just so much younger, faster, more athletic, and like they've got two really, really good 7-footers also. Where you're going up against a team in Golden State that's like, I mean, either they're going small with Draymond at the 5, or it's like Quentin Post, Trace Jackson Davis. Like it's
Hey, he'll make some threes. Maybe.
Yeah, it's tough sledding. I hear you. I hear you.
like no disrespect to 3 surefire Hall of Famers,
Yeah.
but I don't think that would be a fair fight.
It's more so just mad respect to the league-leading Thunder.
I don't think anybody's beating the Thunder. Like they're the championship
Like I
favorite
said,
to me.
I would
and
pick them to win the title right now. I just think the Warriors' ceiling is a bit scary now.
They've played a pretty light
Fair.
schedule, and like you said earlier too, the West playoffs is all about matchups. I think there was a stat, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but the Nuggets haven't beat the Wolves in like 9 or so games. The Nuggets have beat the Warriors in like 7 or straight. Right? Like it.
Yeah, it is very matchup dependent when the margin for error or like the margins between the teams are.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Like forget playing the Thunder. Like let's say they have a second or even a first round series against Denver. And you're looking at a very, very thin front court against the best center maybe ever.
Yeah. All right. Well,
plus Jimmy's efficiency is not where it's at. He's not.
that is
He
one
pretty
thing
much was
actually.
off
He
for,
is
like,
having
2
the least efficient. I mean, it's only a 20-game sample, but if this was like a season, it'd be his least efficient
There's only-
performance in 6 years. But I think his overall game has been incredible, like since he's been there.
His impact, yes. But he was off pretty much for like 2 months.
Yeah.
The last time he played on the road with the Heat was December 16th. And then he didn't really play or try. He was like sitting in the corner taking one-legged threes.
But-
like,
Well, I think they're as well as I think he's fit in Golden State. I think he still has a lot to prove in terms of are we seeing the result of an age-related decline, or is he? I mean, in Miami early in the season, was he just quiet quitting, and now are we seeing him sort of preserve himself for the playoffs or ramp back up for that? But like, there is a passivity in his game
100%.
that I don't think was there when he was playing at his best. Obviously, we've seen it time and time again. He's a different player in the playoffs. But I think his usage rate this season is like his lowest since 2013-14, like the year before he won Most Improved Player, became an All-Star. So, and that's like not necessarily a huge deal, especially when he's playing next to Steph and taking more of a back seat. But the issue that the Warriors have run into over the last few years is the lack of a secondary scorer and creator other than Steph. And I think the hope is that Jimmy can be that guy, and I don't think he's necessarily put that issue to rest from what we've seen so far.
I don't think he's scored in the 20s when he's played with Steph yet. Like it's been.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair criticism. Okay.
once.
It's not a criticism. It's just
It's
like
just it's an observation.
observation.
It's an observation of where he is or might be at this point of his career. Okay, in terms of I know the on the court is obviously the most important, and like that's why the Warriors got him. But in classic Jimmy fashion, one of the things that's happened since he got there is, any interview he's done, a couple just came out because he's going to be in Miami this week. Yeah. Everyone wants to talk about what went wrong in Miami, but also what's going right so far in 20 games in Golden State. And, he is praising, I guess, the culture in Golden State and talking about how Steve Kerr and the Warriors organization, they kind of let guys be who they are. They let them be quirky. They don't care about the off-the-court stuff. As long as you show up on time and you help the team win and you're all about winning, like, that's all they care about. They don't care. Essentially, Jimmy Butler is saying, like, now I've found the right place. Like, this place gets me. I will remind everyone that a few years ago when he landed in Miami, that was supposed to be the perfect marriage of superstar and franchise. He culture Jimmy Butler, Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler. And guess what? A few years later,
It was until it wasn't.
Exactly.
2 finals appearances,
100%.
conference finals berth.
But it
Also,
wasn't in the end.
I mean, I didn't go back and look, but I am sure that you can find quotes from Jimmy in his first year in Miami.
That's what I'm saying.
When he said the exact same thing.
That's what I'm saying. So
Sixers.
my question for both of you now, and I know it's a hard question to answer because we don't know him personally, we don't know the situation there, but if you're a betting person and someone just asked you, okay, look, he's under contract now 2 more years after this one. Do you think Jimmy Butler gets to the end of his contract in Golden State without any drama, consider drama whatever you want, like drama between him and the organization or between him and Steve Kerr? Or do you think this is just the honeymoon phase that we've seen, to your point before, with Jimmy?
Plays with Draymond Green's on that roster. Like,
So your answer's no. So your answer's no.
I want to kind of split the difference because
Okay.
I think there will be drama. He will have his run-ins with Draymond. He will have his run-ins with Kerr. And it will be the kind of thing where they brush it off as just like,
yeah.
we're all crazy competitors and this is what happens in this environment. And it's a good thing. I think there will be stuff like that. I think in terms of like drama such that he's like forcing his way out, I'm going to say that doesn't happen.
I agree.
And it has nothing to do with the situation or Jimmy himself and everything to do with like where he's at in his career.
Yeah.
And what you were talking about before, where you figured at this stage he had kind of lost that leverage. I think moving forward, he actually will have lost that leverage. Like there just isn't going to be enough of an appetite, especially on that gargantuan extension that
my
he
God.
signed, to like for other teams to go out and try and get him. So that I think is going to make it impossible for him to like maneuver himself to a different situation moving forward. And it's like another way to like if you want to translate what he's saying when he's like this place gets me, really what he's saying is this place paid me. Let's be honest, like
They paid me and they're letting me do what I want. Like there was the report in The Athletic, and I know it was a personal matter. Like he wanted to go see his kids because they had a bunch of off days before they get to Miami and all that. But they made a point, and he made a point in that story of saying like it wasn't an issue for him to be on a separate flight, to him not be staying with the team or flying with the team, because all Steve Kerr cares about is that I'm on time and that we win. And so that's seen as like, oh, they get him. But it's like, again, but Miami was letting him do those things. And it didn't become an issue until he was no longer the difference maker he once was, and when he started causing other problems because he wasn't getting paid.
Right. That's kind of
It
how
all
it all
comes down to his
started.
contract.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and I think for the Warriors, they knew going into this that they were going to have to make certain accommodations, and they were willing to make them because they were very desperate, because they were stuck as like a sub 500 team with Steph in like the twilight of his career, with no other avenues to like meaningfully raise their ceiling. I think this was a move they had to make. With all the baggage that came along with it, the accommodations they had to make, whatever risks were involved in terms of his age and like the explosive personalities in the locker room, they deemed it worth it. I thought it was 100% the right bet for them to make, and it's paying off right now. Where that's going to lead next year in a couple of years' time, I don't know. Like I said, I think there will be incidents probably, but I don't think that Jimmy is going to be able to like force his way out. And I think he'll probably recognize that, and for that reason won't even like try to do it necessarily.
I agree.
He's going to be making $57 million in 2026-27. Like, I think that's enough reasons to not quite quit on the team.
And according to you guys, all he'll have to show for it is getting trucked by the Thunder in the playoffs. No, I hear you.
But that might be the destiny of every team this season and next.
That's fair.
It's unfortunately where...
Okay, let's move to the East and to a team who wishes their destiny could even be that bright or that promising. Let's talk a little Detroit basketball. By far the NBA's most improved team. Dead last the last 2 years, 14-68 last year. We know how calamitous that season was. Now a solid 6th seed in the East, very much entrenched in that playoffs proper positioning. They're going to the postseason. They're even fighting for home court. They're only a couple games back of 4th. So if you look at the most improved teams year over year in NBA history, their win percentage improvement right now would currently rank 6th. You can go down these teams. So the 2007-2008 Celtics were the most improved team ever year over year. They, of course, added Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen to form the Big Three with Paul Pierce. That's why they were so drastically improved. The 1997-1998 Spurs, the second most improved team year over year ever. Well, they added Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
The
and a healthy David Robinson.
Yes, and a healthy David Robinson after he had been hurt the year before. The 1989-90 Spurs, the third most improved team year over year, added David Robinson. The 2004-2005 Suns, of course, added Steve Nash, who was about to become a 2-time reigning MVP. The 1979-80 Celtics, the 5th most improved team ever, added Larry Bird. That was his rookie year. And the 6th most improved team ever, the 2024-2025 Pistons, added Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, and Tim Hardaway
Don't
Jr.
forget Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, and Dennis Schroeder later in the year. But listen, I get the fact that JB Bickerstaff has done a good job of organizing them after the chaos of last year. I completely understand how targeting guys like, veteran shooters like Harris and Beasley and even Hardaway Jr. to a lesser extent, just that spacing that was so desperately needed to unclog the floor for Cade Cunningham, I completely understand how that's opened things up. But I think we can also accept that when we talk about those 6 most improved teams ever, those other 5 were improved to a level where they were about to be perennial contenders. The Pistons aren't quite there yet. 40-32, 14th overall in the standings, 12th ranked point differential, 10th ranked defense, which is very respectable given where they were last year, 13th ranked offense. My question then, and Keith, we can start with you this time, is, for as great a story as this is, it's feel good, are we really just talking about a really mediocre team in a really bad conference? Or are we talking about this promising young team that is on the cusp of building towards contention?
I want to preface this with the Pistons, I think, are my favorite story of the season, by far.
But
From what they were and where they are now and how they're all playing together. But I think it's a bit of both. They're definitely building towards the future with their, I guess, Langdon? I can't say his name properly.
Trajan Langdon? Yeah.
Trajan Langdon?
Yeah.
Came in immediately, kind of cleaned house, made all the right moves. The roster is decently put together. Obviously, J.D. Bickerstaff has them playing really well together. They have a good future to me, but what they are right now is a mediocre team in a really bad East that has 6 teams with a winning record.
Yeah, okay, so I will also preface this by saying that I think, the Pistons have been one of my favorite teams to watch this year. I think they are the single best story in the NBA this season because of what you mentioned, the turnaround without making these dramatic personnel moves. It's really been internal growth that has gotten them there. And yes, I'd give an immense amount of credit to JB Bickerstaff and his coaching staff.
By the way, he's going to probably finish second in Coach of the Year voting to the guy who replaced him in the spot where he got fired in Cleveland with Kenny Atkinson, obviously.
Yeah.
Just a funny twist.
And I thought he got a raw deal in Cleveland. Yeah. Obviously, it worked out really well for the Cavs as well. So, that said, I think in terms of talking about the additions they made, Tobias Harris has been a big help. Malik Beasley has been a huge help with his shooting. THJ has been fine. I actually think considering they traded Quentin Grimes to get him and seeing what Quentin Grimes has done this year, I think they might have been better off if they hadn't made that move. But those were savvy additions. I think the biggest addition they made was adding a superstar in Cade Cunningham, right? He has really blossomed this season into that level of star. And I think where they go from here is contingent on a couple of things. One is, can he keep carrying that forward? Is there another level for him to hit in terms of, I think what we've seen from him this year is just him getting so much more comfortable in terms of his pacing, such a patient pick and roll operator, stringing defenses out, waiting for passing opportunities to open up. And scoring opportunities, frankly, as well, putting defenders in jail and just getting to his spots. He's gotten so comfortable at doing all of that. His shooting has come around. I think his defense has improved. So there are a couple of things where the turnovers are still a big issue for him.
Oh my god,
that's always been my biggest critique of him.
And it's in the past, people would point to well, look who he's playing with. Look at the spacing he is dealing with. That's meaningfully improved this year. The turnovers have still been an issue. I think you're willing to overlook that because of the place he's gotten to as a scorer and a playmaker. I think he still needs to figure out how to cut down on those because a lot of them, frankly, some of them come because of the audacious passes that he's willing to make. Some of them, a lot of them are unforced turnovers. So cutting down on that, and then it's the scoring efficiency where he's at, I think, 55, 56% true shooting this year.
Is that right around league average or just below it?
It's probably just below league average, but for a lead guard, around average, I would say. And that is just a function of, he doesn't get to the free throw line a ton. And I know in like the debates about modern basketball, that's like,
Calling
pure
him the
hooping.
ethical hooper. They're
Yeah,
calling him.
versus like the the grifting that people see from Shea.
Yeah.
But
Did a whole segment on that.
but like drawing free throws is an art.
100%.
And I
Getting
think
to the
it's a
line
skill.
is an art.
And I think he has the skills to be a guy who's like getting to the free throw line a ton. And it's not grifting. It's more about like body control, getting defenders off balance, using that change of pace that he has in his game in order to just like get more efficient shots. And free throws are like the most efficient shots that you can take. And I think him not getting there a ton is dragging down his overall efficiency. But it's also the fact that like he's a good, not great 3-point shooter. He's a good, not great mid-range shooter. He's a good, not great finisher. Like all of this stuff I think has room to improve. So where Cade gets to, I think will play a huge part in determining how far they can go. But it's also about like they need either like to make a big personnel move or they need somebody else to pop.
Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson.
One of those guys has to like emerge as a legit second star next to him if they want to like move their ceiling past cute regular season story, but really their ceiling is like hard fought first round series or like maybe second round, And I think I look at I mean, like honestly, I would probably point to Asar as like the most likely on their roster right now to be that second star. And I like Jaden Ivey. I don't know if it's like star potential, but like when he came into the league, I kind of saw a lot of De'Aaron Fox in him, and I think that you could point to like how De'Aaron Fox's career started. Like they both had really rough rookie seasons, and then obviously came along after that. But like the speed and like learning how to modulate that speed was like a big thing for De'Aaron Fox, and I think Ivy showed a lot of that this year before he got injured. So maybe that could be him, but Asar with his athletic tools, his defense. Like I mean,
I like Ivy and Duren, but I'm with you. I think Asar Thompson would be like their most likely candidate, the highest ceiling guy of those next three after Cade. That has the potential to be that second guy, but they do need that second guy. I'm pretty bullish on their future just because, one, for a guy that was never a big Cade believer, he's proven me wrong and then some this year, and he's done it in a way where it's like when you do what he's doing at 23 years old as the best player on a playoff team, like you're a star. Like you can't have a fluke at this level, okay? Like this much of a fluke. So he's good to me now, where he's a foundational piece. Whether he's the best player or not on a contending team, whatever. He's a foundational piece, full stop. Perennial all-star contender every year. The big question is like, does he become perennial all-NBA? Like this year he's an all-NBAer. Is he a perennial all-NBAer? Does he ever nudge into like the MVP conversation? Like, is he that level of star? And that's the big question. But in general, you have a guy like that at 23 years old. You've got those few guys after, like young guys after him. The cap sheet's pretty clean. Like Beasley's their only like significant free agent this year, and they'll have like $27-ish million in cap space. A lot of guys.
They should bring Beasley back.
They should bring Beasley back. I'm just saying, like, it's
so important.
Even they could bring him back, and it doesn't at all like hamstring them in the future. Right. Other than this year, where they're going to lose their pick, they have all their picks. So I think they're a mediocre team right now. A fun story that's still mediocre, but I think I'm actually more bullish on their future than a lot of other people are, because while I don't see that second star on the team right now, I do think between the young talent, the draft picks they'll have, the flexibility, I think there's avenues to find one or go get one. And the biggest thing for me is just when Cade Cunningham is as good as he looks like at 23 years old, you've got a foundational star that a lot of other teams are tanking for right now.
Yeah, and I think maybe a good point of comparison is the Rockets, right? Who,
not the Kings.
Well, I mean, we can talk about the Kings too, I mean, as a point of comparison if you want. But I think about the Rockets because that was a team coming off, I want to say, a 23-win season when they went and signed Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks, tried to get Brook Lopez, and everyone's like, what are you guys doing? And I think the idea was, okay, well, we've assembled this young talent base. We need to supplement it with, like, we need to get some veterans in the locker room, but we also need to get players who can help put those young players in an environment where they can really develop in the right way. And I don't think the players the Pistons brought in are as good as Brooks or VanVleet, but I think we've seen like a similar progression from those young players in an environment that has been facilitated by these vets that they brought in.
Conference adjusted, they might be as good.
Well, so last year the Rockets went from being like a 23-win team to, I
22
think,
wins to 41.
There you
okay.
go.
So the Pistons have made like an even greater jump than that this year. So can they get to where the Rockets are now next year? Where I think the Rockets are on pace to win 51 games this year. And so that's kind of what I see as like the blueprint. And I do think Cade is like better now than anybody on the Rockets. Like I think he's surpassed Şengün. So.
Definitely
So that far, but all right.
No, I mean, I think it's.
But the fact
I
that we're
think
even
I'm
having that
good,
conversation is a
yeah.
testament to how good Cade is.
I was tracking a stat last year on Cade. I think the first. Oh wait, I have it here. He went 11 30-point games before winning one of those games.
So out of
The
11
first time
30-point
he won
games
a 30-point game was against the streak-ending win against the Raptors.
So 11 30-point games, and they only won one of them. Yeah, it wasn't leading to winning.
He wasn't impacting the team.
Yeah.
Obviously, the roster sucked, but
I think, I had brought up the Kings comparison as a team where, like, they had this feel-good story. They get to the playoffs, but that was kind of like the peak, and now they're already starting to tumble back down. Even though I think that Kings team was more talented, I think what's working in the Pistons' favor to not repeat that is that, one, they play in the East, and two, their best talent is younger than what that Kings team's best talent was, and they have less decisions to make right away. And so I think they have a longer runway. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm more bullish on them than I think a lot of people are.
I mean, the Rockets, even the Wizards now, and the Pistons are all kind of following the same formula in terms of you have a really young, inexperienced, immature group of players, and then you add vets.
Yeah.
And it has an immediate impact on the culture.
And I'll just say,
Middleton and Smart.
That is a great point, because since they got Middleton and Smart, they've been almost, maybe not 500. They had a few weeks where they were like playing at 500.
They have a
basketball.
positive net rating with Middleton on the floor.
There you go. Yeah, no, that's a great point.
They're like a team when he plays.
Yeah. They brought in the adults.
Yes.
And kind of teach the kids how to play at the pro level. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think, this isn't really to the point of what we're talking about, but just because you brought up that Kings team, I think it's important, for me at least, to express that, like, that Kings team, that Kings season was, like, one of my favorite seasons for any team in the last 10 years. And I feel like not quite the same way about this Pistons team, because in terms of their play style, it doesn't appeal to me in the same, like, that Kings team was so fun to watch. But I also have a real soft spot for this Pistons team, and I think a lot of people are going to remember this season very fondly for a long time because of how unexpected it was, because of how dramatic the turnaround was. And even if this isn't leading to championship contention in the future for the Pistons, this matters. Like, I have long been of the belief that, like, we need to highlight these regular season stories and act 100%. Like they matter.
Yeah.
Because
like,
they do matter.
Yeah. They matter. Like,
you don't just wake up and all of a sudden you're the first seed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like
and the league should want people to think it matters. Like these stories in the regular season.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, it can't just be, okay, well, what are they going to do in the playoffs? Like, one team wins every year, 29 teams don't. And most teams, like, even if they're building through the draft, building organically, watching this young talent grow, most teams are still going to, like, cap out at, like, second round or maybe conference finals if they're lucky, Like, so even if this isn't building toward, like, a future of contention for the Pistons, which I'm not saying it's not, but we should celebrate this nonetheless.
This is the first, like, taste of winning Cade's gotten in his career, obviously. They won 14 games. They've won more games since the end of January than they did all last season.
Oh, it's nuts.
He's not going to know... What's the right word? The adaptability won't be there right away at the playoffs, but you don't get that until you've been there and you've done it a couple times.
Okay, let's leave the Pistons there for now and talk about a bunch of teams who are trying to even put themselves in a position to get there, to get those reps. There are 7 there's probably more, but there are 7 clear tankers at the bottom of the NBA standings right now that are going to embark on just an epic or shameless, depending on how you look at it, run of...
What do you mean going to embark?
They're embarking on it. But the next 3 weeks are going to get even worse.
There's been lots of embarking.
Yeah. The next few weeks, when you look at some of the matchups between these teams, it's going to get rough.
When we talk about the schedule needs to reevaluate their lives.
When we talk about the tank commanders at the bottom of the standings this year, when you think of what they're trying... Okay, obviously everyone wants Cade or one of these guys this year. I mean, there's going to be another draft class next year that people are tanking for. But when you consider the 7 teams who are most shamelessly tanking this year. Is there one where you look at them like this team more than any of these other losers needs this the most? Like, is there any team like, and Keeks, I want to start with you for this reason because I want you to throw that net. You don't have to pick the Nets, but I want you to hit us with that net stat that you were teasing to me yesterday. When we were talking about the Pistons, I was going to say the Pistons haven't won a playoff game, I believe, since 2008, which is insane to think about. Mm-hmm. The Brooklyn Nets haven't even picked in
guess.
the lottery since when, Keeks?
Take a guess. Someone guess.
I mean,
I'm trying. I mean,
They
was it
haven't picked
before
in the
2010?
lottery since they drafted Derek Favors.
that's what I was going to say, Derek Favors, but I
2010.
couldn't remember if they or the Jazz had because he never actually played for the Nets.
No.
Right? He got traded for Darren Williams after they drafted him.
Yeah.
yeah. So when you consider
Yeah.
how many bad teams the Nets have
Wait,
fielded
no, I lied. I think he did. He played 56 games.
He did play for them.
I thought he
but he
did
got
it.
traded during
for
his rookie
Darren
year.
Williams
In his
yeah.
rookie year.
When you consider how many bad teams the Nets have fielded in the last 15 years, the fact that they haven't had a lottery pick since Favors, again, obviously speaks to the all-in moves that they made on two different occasions in
Yes.
two different eras to get there. But that's pretty insane. So I'm not saying that you're going to pick Brooklyn. Maybe you'll pick someone else, but I'm glad you bestowed us with that tidbit because that is just a fun fact. Well, depressing as hell if you're a Nets
It's
fan.
depressing
but
as hell if you're.
fun fact for 29 other fan bases out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I just want to go on a brief tangent here about the Nets and about why really
Make it brief.
I don't think they are the team that needs it the most.
Because they're in New York.
They are in a desirable market. They have a ton of surplus picks. Like I think they have a better chance of rebuilding themselves or using the free agent market to kind of elevate themselves in a way that like really a lot of these other teams don't. And it just made me want to say, because I have like heard a lot of people talking about what a disaster the sort of like Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden gambit was. And like obviously it was a huge disappointment. It didn't work out the way that they had hoped and blew up in pretty spectacular fashion. But it is a great example of why just signing superstars as free agents when you have a chance to do so is always a fantastic idea because they gave up nothing to get those guys.
Yeah.
They just signed them into cap space, and yes, it blew up, but by the time they trade Cam Johnson, I mean, I guess if they trade Cam Johnson, they will have recouped like 12 first-round draft picks.
First-round picks over the next 7 years in any
And they got
any team.
some of their own back in that Mikal Bridges
Right?
trade. So,
and like they made two, I would say, what in hindsight looked like two disastrous James Harden trades.
Yeah.
Like the one to get him and the one to move him both look really bad in hindsight. And they're still in a way better spot looking big picture than they were before they signed KD and Kyrie.
So Nets are out.
Yes.
I would say, listen, we're all three of us sitting here wishing the Raptors would have the most lottery luck. But if we're being honest in terms of who needs it the most, they have, regardless of how much you think of Scotty Barnes, he is a foundational piece. Yeah. Again, the type of piece that a lot of these other teams are chasing. I think we can eliminate the Raptors. That leaves 5 teams. Keeks, who needs lottery luck the most?
Okay, when I first read the question, I thought you were asking who deserves it the most.
Hit us with that.
And none of these teams deserve this.
Yes.
The tanking has been so shameless. The Jazz, Wizards, Hornets, they've been losing for so many years. The losing culture in those.
Yeah.
In those
Utah,
teams,
I would say, could have won on some level the last couple years and purposely punted like halfway through the season. Washington and Charlotte weren't even trying to lose for a while and still were.
The Wizards actually look kind of fun right now. Like they're doing it in a better way than they have in the past. The Hornets are just miserable and don't.
I forget they exist sometimes.
Yeah.
I think they haven't made the playoffs since 2015-16.
They have I believe they have the longest
season
playoff drought
then.
in the league right now.
One winning season since then, and outside of LaMelo, like what do they really have? And I guess Brandon Miller, who's hurt, but what do they have to show for it, right? Like they've been tanking for so many years with nothing. The Jazz are apparently calling this year 3 of a teardown.
Yeah, the rebuild hasn't even started if you ask the Jazz front office.
Yet.
Yeah.
So
the rebuild will start when they trade Lowry Markkanen.
Yeah.
But like we've watched the Jazz twice, I think, with the Raptors the last couple weeks. I'm watching the Jazz. I'm like, you have maybe 6 NBA players on the team that'll be in the NBA in 5 years. 6 actual NBA players. So you've been tanking for 3 years,
They've been tearing down for
3 years. And kind again, like, what do you kind of have to show for it, right? It's just when I read the question, I was like, yeah, none of these teams deserve this, because if losing like this and quiet tanking is the way to get a draft pick that you don't even know, it's not a great time.
It's not their fault that these are the rules. It's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
Like nobody ever deserves to win the lottery.
That's a lot.
Deserves
the
got
Toronto
nothing
Raptors
to do with
deserve to win the lottery this year. They deserve lottery luck.
I think it's more about like what will a team do, or how will that winning the lottery impact them.
Yeah. Like will Cooper Flag be wasted on the Hornets or
yes.
Wizards?
All three of those to me is a yes. Cooper Flag will be wasted on all three of those teams.
We know your answer. No one deserves it.
No one deserves it.
Who
so
needs
I'm
it?
going off the board.
Okay.
And going with the Miami Heat.
Oh my God. That is just
off the board.
Shameless. You're a Heat plug. You're a Heat culture.
That's supposed to be Cash's job.
Yeah, you're a Heat culture truther.
No,
the most desirable market in the NBA, who gets free agents whenever they want. You think
do they get free agents whenever they want? I don't think they do anymore. When's like Jimmy?
Yeah,
and
they get free agents when they don't even have the cap space to get free agents, because guys want to go there. But listen, I love it. It's all you said. You were going off the board. You went off the board. I'll give that to you.
They haven't. They have 6 lottery picks. Obviously, they've been winning a lot since 2015. Guess the last time they picked in the top 10.
Was it Michael Beasley?
Justice Winslow, 2015.
Yeah.
They can't, like I said, we were talking about this earlier. Jimmy kind of hid a lot of the flaws of that roster, made them
look how they treated him. And you think they deserve to get Cooper Flag after kicking him to the curb?
I'm just saying, Spo's having a really hard time right now. He hasn't had a lot of talent.
Yeah, they haven't been to the finals in 2.5 years.
It's a freaking tragedy.
In terms of like, this is what tanking should be. Not tanking, but the lottery is supposed to be for teams that lose, right? Like are trying to win, and their last 2 wins have come against the Wizards and the Hornets. It's not like they're.
I hear, like I said,
there is some suspicion. Are you like, is Spo stealth tanking? What's going on? But
I disagree, but I very much admire how off the board you went. I genuinely do.
Way off the board.
And that's why we will have you back for a 3rd time on the Unfiltered Show at some point this season. Wolfond, who needs lottery luck the most?
I think it has to be like one of the Hornets or Wizards.
Yeah.
What are the Hornets gonna do with like?
Well,
that's why they need it.
This is about what they're going.
They need it.
They could draft Cooper Flag and like not be a good team for the first few years that he's there. This isn't real in my mind, at least. This isn't about are they going to squander his first 7 years in the league or however long it takes for him to find his way out of there. It's more about which of these teams is going to be most screwed if they don't get Cooper Flag. And it's like the Hornets, despite the fact that they drafted LaMelo, who is, I mean, really like the best homegrown player that franchise has had since when?
Since ever.
Glenn Rice? I don't know. Like
Kemba?
Did they even draft Glenn Rice? Maybe not.
I think Kemba would be the name, yeah.
But like
LaMelo's more talented.
Yes.
Yeah, LaMelo's ceiling is, I think, appreciably higher than
deeply
Kemba Walker's.
unserious basketball.
I
love Kemba Walker, but I don't think he was anywhere near as talented or had anywhere near as high a ceiling as LaMelo has. So they drafted that dude, and it's really amounted to nothing so far. And that's, because, yes, he hasn't played super serious basketball, hasn't had a ton of talent around him, hasn't been able to stay healthy. They get Brandon Miller in the door, and again, it's like they just can't make any progress.
They employ Miles Bridges.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. I mean that would be a reason to say they don't
deserve it.
But I'm talking. Yeah. Again, I'm just talking about like who's going to be the most screwed if
they don't
win this lottery, and it's like at what point if they don't get Cooper Flag and they don't make any progress with whoever they do draft in wherever they land the top 5. Like how long until they just say screw it and try to trade LaMelo and like restart again?
Not long, I'd say.
I don't think. Whether they win the draft or not, I don't think it makes it different than what their record is next year. I think they're still going to be.
But at least they'd have a cornerstone piece.
Fair.
And they are just like the most. I mean, I think it's tight between them and the Wizards in terms of like who is the most woebegone franchise, basically in NBA history. But
The Wizards haven't had a
the
finish.
Wizards-
the Hornets are right up there. So
Yeah.
I think it's them or Washington.
Yeah.
Washington has like put some nice young pieces together. I think Sarr has a chance to be like a really special defensive player at the very least. Same with Bilal.
Yep.
Keyshawn
You
George
know,
stepping up too.
yeah, and like who am I forgetting? Bub Carrington.
Yep.
Like they have some
They have some young guys with some pop.
interesting young talent. They do not have the guy who's like,
No.
okay, that's the franchise cornerstone. This is who we're building around. And if they don't get that guy in this draft, it's just like, okay. I mean, I guess they could try again in 2026 with like AJ
say
DeBonta and like Cam
Yeah.
Bruce or whatever. They can keep getting kicks at the can to try and get that guy, but this feels like an opportunity that it would be really painful for them to miss out on if this season doesn't lead to them
If I had
putting
to
that guy
answer
on
the
roster.
question with a who needs it, it would be the Wizards for me. And if I'm still gonna go with
The
like,
deserve.
If on the board list, I'll go with the Wizards because
Okay.
their pick this year is top 8 protected.
Yeah.
to
They're
the-
gonna
to the
finish. I
Thunder,
mean, yeah.
which again,
Yeah.
and again, it's top 8 again, or maybe top
Next
10
year?
next year.
Yeah.
So they're going to be losing for the next 2 seasons at the very least.
I'm gonna go with a team that it's technically on the board, but I think it's off the board in terms of what people expect. I'm going with the New Orleans Pelicans, and here's why. Even though they've got a guy right now that a lot of teams would see as a franchise level talent, so I've done a rant already this year about Zion. Zion, great talent. I'm having fun watching him when he's in the lineup right now. But guess what? He's gonna play 31 games over the
Yeah.
next 2 years. I'm at the point where I'm sorry, I just will never buy it now with Zion until I actually see him play like 60 plus games in multiple years in a row. It's just
One of the greatest theoretical
Yes,
superstars
exactly.
that
Yeah.
we've seen.
And the Pelicans need a literal superstar, okay, in the flesh. The thing I would argue is that one, being in the West puts them at more of a disadvantage in terms of yes, the Wizards and Hornets badly need some star talent and some relevance, but they're also in the conference that look at the Pistons. You make a couple tweaks here and there, you land one, it can change very quickly. The Pelicans need a lot more to go right, and the reason I'm picking the Pelicans is also because, and not to get too dark here, you're talking about a market
Yeah.
that legitimately needs relevance, success,
Yep.
and a star talent, one who's in the lineup, for that team to stay in that market long term. Whereas, look,
Unlike the basketball hotbed of Washington, D.C.
okay, but the Wizards have been there. The Wizards Bullets have been there forever. They're not leaving. If they were going to leave, they would have just gone to Maryland or something. They're going to stay in the area. Now, Charlotte has lost the franchise before. I know that's possible. But to me, the Pelicans, especially if you read reports the last few years, and they seem to be the franchise on shakiest ground when it comes to their long-term home. And the best way to quiet that is you win the draft lottery, you get Cooper Flag, you immediately become one of the more relevant teams next year. You immediately start rising the ranks, or at least looking like you can rise the ranks really quickly, and everything changes. We've seen that happen before. Short of that, that's the team to me where if they move back a couple spots or just don't get that genuine franchise-changing talent this year, and they have to wait another year of a season like this to try to get one of those guys, that to me is the team that is most vulnerable to some terrible stuff happening in the franchise. So
That's valid.
for that reason, I'm
That's
going to say the
valid.
Pelicans need it. All right, I think we've exhausted our.
They
talking
all
points.
need it, really.
Yeah,
though.
they all
They
need it.
all are shameless.
Yes.
None of them deserve it.
All right. For Joe Wolfond, for Keeks, my name's Joseph Casciaro. This has been The Unfiltered Show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.